Welcome to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality, a show designed to share spiritual insights with you so that you can comprehend the universe and how it functions. You are about to experience raised consciousness. This is a place where spiritual principles are shared with the goal of assisting you to expand your understanding of both the seen and unseen worlds. Luminescence Common Sense Spirituality helps you to discern the timeless truths handed down from wise sages through the ages, from the airy-fairy nonsense that is being taught today. Now, here is your host, Lynn Wyeth.
Welcome to Luminescence Common Sense Spirituality, the radio show that disseminates esoteric knowledge and common sense spirituality. I'm Lynn Wyeth, creator of namology science, the ability to know all about a person's personality and their soul's purpose simply from a person's name. Now, the beautiful music you heard at the beginning of this show is Shine by Dee Lamore. You can hear more of her music at her website, dlemor.com. And of course, we always end our show with one of her songs. So I would just want to share her information as more and more of you are saying, how can we find out more about her? Now, our topic today is connecting to your higher self and your soul in your spiritual heart, how to expand your light and traverse higher dimensions, how to awaken to find the infinite potential of self and to become a conscious creator in our reality, how to ascend by going inwards, and also the East versus the West in world religions. We're just going to touch on that because there's a difference and yet there's a lot of overlap even though it's presented differently. And our special guest today is Lynn Gergar. Now, Lynn Gergar has been bringing through public messages since 2007. Lynn has the gifts of channeling the higher self-consciousness his entire life. Before ever hearing the term channel or medium, Lynn was already channeling his school papers with ease during the teenage years. It was after his meeting with Jananda Korsholm in 2004 that Lynn was guided to more fully explore and strengthen his inborn ability to channel the higher self-consciousness. Now, after receiving requests from a growing YouTube audience, Lynn began offering his channeling services to the public. I heard about Lynn through a client of mine, and his name popped off the page because, everybody when they're doing name readings asks me about different names, and his just popped off the page, and I went, okay, for a name to pop like that, I need a session. I was so incredibly pleased, and you guys all know I'm picky and have high standards, and I just thought if you have an opportunity to have a session with Lynn, you will be so pleased equally well. Anyway, Lynn, welcome to Luminescence.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks for the really kind introduction. And I'm really excited to be able to talk with you today and share more about the higher self with your online audience.
Well, let's just start. How do you connect to your higher self and your soul coming through your spiritual heart?
Well, my experience is that our higher self is always within us. We really just have to learn how to open our awareness to perceive it. So the higher self communicates with us as intuitive feelings sometimes. It communicates as maybe thoughts that we hear or inspired ideas. It also communicates with us in our dream state. In my own path, I practice Zen meditation, and I practiced a really strict form of Zen called Shikantaza, which means just sitting. So essentially, my meditation practice was sitting, staring at a blank bedroom wall, and not doing anything. So any thoughts that would happen, any emotions that would happen, any body sensations, I would just let them arise and let them change and let them vanish. And I really learned how to stay as this open space of awareness, without judgment, without resistance, without hope or expectation. In the spiritual teachers that I've studied, they mentioned how important it was to purify your mind. And then when you reach that state of deep purity, you have mental silence and emotional peace. What I didn't expect was that as I reached these deeper levels of emotional and psychological purification, a greater wisdom awoke inside of me. What I found happening actually was hearing different sounding thoughts. So usually when we listen to our thoughts, there's a personality that we hear, and we assume it's our own personality, and it kind of sounds like the same voice. What I started discovering as I had these long periods of silence without any thoughts was a different type of intelligence speaking into me. It wasn't my usual personality that was commenting on things happening. It was actually a voice that was guiding me. The first time I noticed that was in college, and I was about maybe 19 years old, and all I was doing was meditating and reading spiritual books, and I really gave up everything else in my life for this. What I noticed was when I'd be walking into classrooms or walking through the college campus, my mind would have its normal thoughts, sometimes, analyzing or criticizing people or maybe feeling anxious about myself. And I noticed that this higher intelligence that sounded different and felt different would come in and correct my thoughts. So this deeper intelligence, this higher mind started speaking into my own personal mind and changing how I thought about life. After it would correct a thought, there would be a long state of silence afterwards. And it was as if the higher self was resolving my own personality. So that was my experience around the year of 2002. And then it wasn't until 2005 when I met another spiritual teacher in the town of Sedona, Arizona. And that teacher saw all these gifts that I had the potential to awaken. Myself, I was just studying Zen. I was sitting in silence. I really wasn't using my mind. I wasn't doing energy healing and things like that yet. But this man told me I have all these gifts and I should just start exploring them. So later on that evening, I was out at night and just walking along the street, looking up at the stars, and I started asking the universe, to answer my questions. And I received answers, and then I branched off into asking my friends to ask me questions, and they gave me good feedback, and then that just expanded into creating YouTube videos and so on. So for myself, Sharon, accessing the higher self is really a natural experience. I feel the higher self is always within us. I just learned to empty my own mind and allow whatever was in the universe that wanted to come into me to come into me. I wasn't trying to connect with anything or connect to beings. It was really natural. Now, along this journey, I also realized that there's some shortcuts you can take. So the way I teach it in my own work is to first center yourself into your spiritual heart. So you allow yourself to essentially feel the center of your chest and just relax. You may still have thoughts, you may have emotions you're feeling, and none of that really matters. What's most important is you just relax into the sensation of the heart area. Sometimes you'll feel peace, maybe you'll feel happiness, maybe you don't feel anything at first. But as you relax into your heart, you're actually connecting to your soul, and that's the deepest part of you. As your soul connection increases, you may notice that you have some brain activity or some crown chakra activity, or you may even feel an area above your head getting more energized. This is part of the process of your higher mind or your higher self now being able to come into your human self to give you intuition and inner guidance. So as we connect to our heart, essentially we're expanding our soul. We're bringing more of who we truly are into our reality, and that begins to fill all our chakras and fill the areas of our psyche with this greater aspect of who we really are. As that continues to grow, we realize we're more than the human body, we're more than the human personality, and we're more than the information we've learned in this lifetime. We really have an intelligence that's connected into the whole universe. Some people talk about viewing Akashic records or receiving information for guides. All of this happens in these higher states of mind that is one aspect of your own higher self. So connecting to the spiritual heart is really key. Relaxation is important, and then the element of trust. I think those are the three most important things to do and to cultivate to connect more to your higher self.
Now, I know I meditated for 18 years before I was able to do what you're saying. Okay? Maybe I just needed to do it the hard way. It was a ton of discipline for me. And I had started reading everything I could get my hands on at 13. So my question is, when somebody's doing this, I know that my team always tells me we're out of time, but people are connecting so much faster than they used to. Okay? And it could have been my belief system that I had been told it takes 20 years. And then I thought, okay, it's taking me, 16 to 18. And I thought, okay, I'm a little bit ahead of the game. And so it could have just been my belief system too that held me back. How long do you think it takes people or before they make a connection that they can feel like, okay, this is working on average for somebody?
That's a really difficult question to answer because everyone comes from a different place. We have different biases and beliefs that sometimes are limiting us. Sometimes we have a very strong interest in spiritual awakening. Sometimes it's just a weaker curiosity. So I think the answer is very individualized. I have one really close friend who actually was in a hospital and was really forced to not be able to do anything while she was sick. And she practiced meditation, and right there, that same day, she had all of these awakening things happen. And for the next 2 years, she was just flooded with this bliss energy that just happened automatically. So for her, it happened the first time she learned about meditation. I have other friends and other clients who maybe it takes them a little longer. I think one of the most important parts is to realize that our human conditioning is profoundly limited. We're taught to believe in a real steady, steadfast physical understanding of life, that it takes a certain number of years to get enlightened, or you have to meditate for this number of minutes every day, or perform this many mantras until you have an awakening. And I think that gets into the way. Our human mind doesn't understand the big picture of reality. Our human mind is so tiny in comparison to the whole cosmos that we exist within, and that's just the physical dimension we're observing. So one of the things that helped me along my own spiritual journey was to realize I don't have the answers. and that's kind of humorous because people work with me to get the answers. You know, they ask me lots of questions, and I really like the answers I get through. But what allowed me to access this higher mind was to realize that my little human mind doesn't know. And so I just wanted to sit there and be shown. And that allowed me to open up and to receive so many more of the gifts that the universe wanted to bring into me. So I think rather than trying to think about, how long it'll take or what to do, we learn to trust the innate intelligence that's guiding each and every one of us. And we also learn to trust the intelligence of the universe that's creating this whole experience for us. I think that's the most important part.
I love the fact that you had us trusting us and trusting the universe, because I think many people learn to trust the universe and still don't know how to trust themselves.
Yeah, that's a real challenge because we've been taught to emphasize what other people want us to do and how other people want us to think more than ourselves reaching our own understanding.
Right, and let experience in life teach us.
Definitely, yeah. Yep.
So, is there anything you want to say to also address to expand the light to traverse the higher dimensions? Anything else you want to add before I go to my next question?
Yeah, sure. First off, in every moment, we have a vibrational body. Awakening to these frequencies of energy is not something external to us. It's really all about inner work. So the type of thoughts we have, that quality of our mind, is a state of vibration. A lot of people assume that they have to get to a vibration or become a vibration. I think the best place to start is just observe the vibration of your personality right now. If you're a very happy person, you may notice you feel differently than other people around you who aren't as happy. Or maybe you have happy days and you have sad days. Start to take notice how the quality of your thoughts and the quality of your emotions have a feeling. And it's really a feeling of vibratory energy. Then also notice the things that you do, whether it's meditation practices or whether physical exercise or having conversations with friends. Notice the things that you do that make you feel happier and more alive and more connected to life. If you focus on the actual experiences you're having and start to view life as a vibrational reality, then you'll understand how to reach these higher states of spiritual experience. Developing the ability to feel your own emotions is so incredibly important because emotion is the vibrational language of the universe. One of the benefits of doing silence meditations is it quiets all those distracting thoughts and that part of our personality that holds on to a steady state of feeling, like the feeling of who we are. So we silence that, and then in that state of silence, if we introduce empowered thoughts, or empowered visualizations or follow guided meditations, we can very easily then ascend to these higher spiritual energies. So I think there's a real important balance of creating stillness first to quiet the mind, empty ourselves out. We notice we feel more expanded and more connected into life. And then we introduce a practice. And that practice more easily then takes hold of us and guides our vibration to a higher state.
You make it sound easy and simple. And I want to say it takes dedication.
It does. Yeah, you have to have a love for it. In my own life, I realized that you can't really fail. Every time you think you fail, you really have given yourself one of the greatest opportunities for learning. Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, we judge ourselves, we give ourselves these expectations and these deadlines in our spiritual growth, and it really just adds stress to the whole process. And stress is a feeling of contraction. So it actually limits how much energy we're allowing ourselves to receive from the universe and to express within ourselves. I think taking a light attitude, we stop criticizing ourselves, we stop judging ourselves, and we make spirituality fun again. That's how we awaken so much as children. That's when we were the most in love with life. And as you know, Sharon, children are often naturally intuitive and naturally spiritually connected. So there's a real important part about taking life less serious, having fun with life, enjoying life, seeing it as a creative experiment or a creative journey that I think allows us to really awaken a lot more easily. But you're definitely right. Dedication's important. When I was beginning my path, I read spiritual teachers every free minute of my day. I practiced every free minute of my day. That's how I filled my life. And I brought all those teachings into my living reality. So I started to view life as a conscious interaction with reality rather than my human self and other human beings on a three-dimensional planet. I started to want to understand, what is this mind of God that I'm experiencing? How is this reality possible? And by changing my approach,
that's a really good place to start right after our commercial break is with that mind of God. All right, guys, hang on. We will be back with Lincoln in just a few moments.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM. OMTimes Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. OMTimes, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
Mark Twain said the two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. The why is hidden in your name. Sharon Lynn Wyeth has created a scientific way of deciphering your name to reveal your contract for this lifetime. And your name even specifies the 7 areas that are subsets of your soul's overall goal. Your name identifies who you are to both yourself and others. What does your name say about you? Contact Sharon Lynn Wyeth at info@knowthename.com for your stunning name review.
These are the sounds of a dinner. A dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 Food Bank strong.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. And this is Sharon Lynn Wyeth, your host, and our special guest today is Lincoln Gergar. Now, you can get more from him and understand more by going to the main website, which is channelhigherself.com. Or you can go to the YouTube and just enrich yourself through all of his videos. Again, by typing in on YouTube, Channel Higher Self. Now, if you're wanting a session with Lincoln, do Channeling Higher Self, and you'll get that information that you require. Okay, Lincoln, when we left off for the commercial, you were talking about God's higher mind and how to connect. Go ahead.
Yeah, so when I was younger and learning about spirituality, I tried to bring all of my practices into my daily life. I read in one of these spiritual books, I think it was a Zen book at the time, that meditation doesn't just stop when you get off of your cushion. Meditation is a state of mind and attitude that you're supposed to bring into your life in every moment. So I practiced cultivating this natural state, but then also I started to try to understand reality as a type of interactive interface. When I was a younger person, I felt that I was in a reality rather than just a separate human being. So the human personality is identified with the body, and if we're always paying attention to that human personality and the thoughts that we have, we're going to feel very three-dimensional. But once we start to notice that I'm inside of a consciousness, I'm inside of the mind of God, then the possibilities become limitless. We start to take a creative approach to life, and we start to express ourselves differently. So I started noticing how my thoughts affected my reality. How if I focused on maybe one state of mind all day, I would then notice how the experiences I had that day would change. I would practice setting an intention for the day or saying a prayer for the day, and then watching how that energy and that state of mind interacted with the whole reality around me. What I started experiencing was that my personal mind is connected to the mind of the universe. And that was very observational. I would think something and hold that intention with a sincere desire, and I would watch it come alive in my physical experiences. So when we take on this understanding that I'm part of the all that is, it's not something I have to get, it's not something I have to create, I don't have to wait till I'm 60 years of age or after I meditate for 3,000 hours. I'm always connected to the mind of God. And the mind of God, this universal intelligence, is always aware of every thought I have and every feeling I have and every desire I have. I can support this unity consciousness experience by trusting in it and by having fun and experimenting with it and seeing what happens. So I think our journey is more or less trying to discover who we are and what is already here, rather than trying to create ourselves or to become something different.
You know, that's a really important point, is that we don't have to look at trying to become something different, and really just acknowledge and become more of who we are and align with that. Would you agree with that, or did you want to modify that somewhat?
Oh, no, I 100% agree. I think that's really well said. I think that some of the biggest challenges we have as human beings is not trusting ourselves and believing we're not good enough as we are. When we learn to just be ourselves, we exercise self-acceptance, and that's a really important form of self-love, and that allows our creative energy to express through us. So we have more conversations. We don't feel so shy in sharing how we think and expressing ourselves. We notice our emotional energy expands. Our chakras become healthier. There's so much importance on trusting who you are, letting yourself be who you are, and feeling that you are here to share yourself with this world.
You know, one of the things I noticed in my session with you was how wonderfully things were phrased or put. There was never a judgment. There was not a negative. It was really emphasized on free will choice, that this person may have their choice there, or this is where this one's headed or going at this particular time. But it was always without any kind of judgment or any kind of negativity. So taking that in mind, would you encourage people to stay from a more positive framework when they're thinking?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think that our little human brain, it just doesn't understand the reasons for everything. There's a beautiful statement, you don't know a person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. And I think that points on something really valuable, that we don't really know the reasons why things happen. We don't really know all the experiences that have shaped a person. And we make our mind, we make our intelligence feel very small when we place all these judgments and restrictions on each other. I think right now the world's really learning this lesson. I think it's in front of all of our faces, like how we judge each other and how we separate and feel different from each other because of these types of conditioned thoughts. When we move into our heart and we just feel our heart's energy, it very quickly gets rid of that judgmental mind. There's a lot of science going on right now, a lot of studies of the brain-heart connection. And my experience has always been, because I'm not a scientist, I'm more of an experimental observer with my consciousness. My experience has always been that when I'm in my heart, I become pleasant, I become peaceful, I become patient, I become compassionate. Just by feeling a deeper, more centered area of myself, I access a more wise intelligence within me. And that then changes how I think and how I feel. So for anyone struggling with getting out of depression or negative states of mind or maybe psychological forms of self-abuse, just try feeling your spiritual heart, relaxing, noticing how your chest moves when you breathe. Bring yourself from your head down to your heart and watch how that natural state of energy that you're feeling in your heart begins to change the quality of your thoughts.
Okay, would you talk to us about boredom? I know that's a little bit about off topic for what we're doing, but something that I hear a lot right now is that I'm home so much that even though I have things to do, I'm actually bored. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so for me, boredom is a subtle state of resistance to what is. And boredom arises because our mind is so creative. Okay, I don't think boredom's a bad thing. I think boredom's a misunderstood emotion or a misunderstood psychological state. So we get ourselves into subtle states of resistance because we judge the experience as bad or wrong. The boredom arises when we judge the present moment as being what I don't want it to be. So we think there's nothing to do. Right? I'm so bored, there's nothing to do, there's nothing happening, I'm cooped up in my home. So we're looking at the present moment and creating problems with it. We have to flip our understanding and realize that I'm the creator at the center of my universe, and everything and anything is allowed. Right? I can think any thought, I can feel any emotion, I can speak any words, and I can do any action. Now, we may not want to do certain actions because they harm other people and we get in trouble with the law and things like that, but really I'm free to do anything that I want to do within this physical reality. When we shift ourselves from feeling like we're a prisoner of the environment, a prisoner with boredom, and into a state of creativity and the permission to explore and do new things, we can then make a dent in that pattern of boredom and resistance. I think sometimes we hold ourselves back too much because we take ourselves too seriously. I think we forget what it's like to be childlike and to explore and have fun and to joke around and to play. Sometimes the world conditions that childlike joy out of us as we get older, and I think it's really important to foster ways to bring that back into our life. Singing, dancing, artwork, going for walks in nature, using your mind in creative visualizations. A beautiful practice is lying down, quieting yourself, and relaxing into your body, and then imagining what you want your life to be. So maybe you imagine a beautiful home that you live in. Maybe you imagine yourself walking along the ocean. Maybe you imagine yourself having great conversations and laughing. You can go into your state of mind and create an inner reality that then changes your emotions. And even more than that, you start then informing your reality and informing your psyche about what you want to create in your physical world. So we can use our creative imagination and then we'll never find a bored moment. You know, I look at young children, they're never bored because they're in their imagination. They're making so much out of the present moment with their own state of mind. And we can learn to do that consciously as a tool for our awakening as well.
You know, I love watching young children, but then I was in education for years, and I even love watching the older ones as they're trying to figure out how they fit in or what they want to do or what kind of decisions that would help propel them into an area of their choice. My kids always heard when they would come tell me, "Oh, Mom, I'm bored," I would say, "Only boring people get bored." And so I know that my grandchildren are being taught the same thing because I hear my kids echo it back to me. And I don't know if that's always true, but it would always make them pause and stop and think for a minute. So, Lincoln, When you're doing a reading and an intercession for somebody, that's how I look at it, when you're assisting them in connecting with what they want to know, is there a particular process that you go through? I know that you start your readings with a meditation, which I found very interesting. And so the people I have recommended to you, I've always told them that first. I said, now expect this, you know. Could you go through that process with us, how you get yourself in that position and how you start your readings and what someone can expect from a reading with you?
Yeah, certainly. So when I first begin a session with someone, I guide them, and I'm actually doing it while I'm speaking to them. So I'll usually just speak an introduction from my human mind, and then I'll start the session, and the higher self starts guiding the meditation. And while it takes the client or the recipient deeper into themselves, it's also taking me deeper into myself. So I'm going on the same journey with them. In the beginning of every session, like in the beginning of every one of my YouTube videos, the higher self guides us to feel our spiritual heart, to relax into ourselves, and to begin to cultivate a state of peace. Now, one of the techniques the higher self uses to create inner peace is to notice the space of awareness that's surrounding your physical body, and to also begin to notice the empty space of awareness inside your mind. So if we pay attention and we start to feel what it's like to be outside of our own skin, we notice we can feel a space. And that space is very quiet and still, and it feels very open and peaceful and free. When we connect to that physical quality of space, it then becomes easier to identify the space of our mind. So usually during our waking life, we're always watching our thoughts. But to meditate, we want to watch the space and connect with the stillness and silent qualities within ourselves. So the higher self guides the person and myself into that deeper state. You feel your heart, you connect to the space and the silence. And from that point forward, after those few sentences, the meditation or the guidance that comes through is uniquely different for each person. So maybe in the first 2 or 3 minutes there's a meditation, but after the first 30 seconds, then it becomes unique words. It talks a lot about light, it talks about peace and love, because as you're working with me, the higher self is connected to both of us. I often describe it as a triangle. So I'm at the bottom corner on one side, and you're at the bottom corner of the other side, and the higher self is above us in the middle. And we both connect into this universal state of intelligent awareness. That connection at the top transfers information into me that's related to your reality. So essentially in these sessions, you're giving me permission to look into your reality, because every soul has their own reality, and then we're all connected with our realities to create this human world. So you're giving the higher self permission to go into your reality, to answer your questions, to answer your requests, and to help you with what you'd like to work on. So there's this triangulation that happens. So the meditation sets us up to begin with, and then the higher self just keeps talking. And it keeps the meditation going a little bit, and then it naturally flows into answering any questions or bringing through the information that your soul would benefit from hearing right now.
Is there any message about what we're currently going through with what's happening on our world that can share hope and inspiration to everyone that's listening?
Yeah, this is a really, really powerful time right now, and I have a lot of compassion for everyone going through the experiences on the planet. It's really, in my life, it's the most challenging time period I've ever seen the world go through. So I have a lot of compassion, but I also have a lot of hope. When I look at the world right now, I see that our external realities are showing us so many ways to interpret life. Before in our lives, I feel we lived very individual lives. We'd wake up, we'd be with our families, we'd go to work, we'd come home. We lived individual lives, and we felt very separate. With all these current events happening in our society, and the media are displaying them every day, every hour of the day, we're all being pulled into a collective point of focus. So this is essentially channeling all our individual creative energies into a one world that we're all unknowingly oftentimes building together. Right now, I think we're seeing a lot of old paradigms, a lot of old ways of looking at the world, and a lot of these attitudes are based upon fear and separation and greed. And so we're seeing it, and it's in our faces, and it's also asking us, what do you think about this? How do you feel when you're in these energies of fear or anger? How do you feel inside, and is that the state you want to be in? So in my life, the outside world has always been like a mirror for me. Not always a mirror that I'm creating, but also a mirror that's showing me some potential that I can create for myself. So I look around the world and I hear how other people speak and I watch how other people live, and I realize that that's the universe showing me one potential that I can put into my own life. So in the modern time, in today's world, as I'm looking around, I'm seeing how all these different people are interpreting the same world. And I realize that I'm free to choose what feels the best for me. I think it's important that we learn how to discern vibration and feeling, because sometimes our mind has been conditioned to believe what is the best, but it doesn't always feel right. We're taught so much to do what others have told us. That's how we were raised since we're little children, and it is beneficial, but at a certain point in our maturity, we have to start making our own decisions, including how we're going to interpret the world. So for myself, I look around the world, I see right now it's like a birthing process. There's pain sometimes, there's suffering, there's fear, there's anxiety, but there's also a lot of hope, and there's also an invitation to become a more powerful creator in your life. So souls are really awakening into their lives right now, and that's what I see the most going on. And I see and hear stories of so many people having really significant spiritual awakenings, like stepping out of patterns they've had in their life for decades of time, feeling love and feeling happiness in stronger ways than they ever have before. I'm also hearing stories and working with people who are having a lot of non-physical experiences. So they're meeting their guides, they're going to higher dimensions, they're having really powerful dream state experiences or meditative experiences. So I can definitely say there's so much awakening happening right now, and the confusion and the chaos of the world is really a powerful catalyst. One of the ways I live my life is I see everything's positive, because I know that everything is the creation of God or the universal consciousness. And so if everything's this one infinite, all-knowing mind, then everything has to be designed for a purpose. And if I look around the universe, I see that everything is evolving. Even in these dark areas, everything is still growing in experience, growing in understanding, growing in maturity. So I look at life and I say, even the dark areas are the motivation to go to the light. Even the confusion is the motivation to find knowledge. Right? The suffering is the motivation for happiness. So I look at the world and I see all of this turmoil, and people are trying to discover who they are and how they think and how they feel and how they want to live their lives. So the chaos is really helping to bring a clarity and an order within this world.
I love the statement that everything has a purpose. And if we can all remember that, then it's easier to stay up a higher vibration and acknowledge and stay in gratitude for everything that's occurring, because it all has a purpose. And that leads us into our next set of commercial breaks. We'll be right back.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Are you feeling lost, confused, absolutely clueless? No way out, over, under, or through? Then it's time to have the Light Keepers, through their conduit, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, guide you by shining their light, illuminating the right path for you. Let Sharon share the wisdom of the ancient masters to guide you on what is coming next for you and to show you the silver lining in your current circumstances. Contact Sharon Lynn Wyeth at info@knowthename.com for a joyful, info-packed Light Keepers session.
If I could be you,
and you could be me,
for just 1 hour,
if you could find a way
to get inside
each other's mind,
walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Welcome back to Luminescence, Common Sense Spirituality. I'm your host, Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and our special guest today is Lynn Gergar. Again, I'd like to share that if you'd like to connect with him, you can go to channelhigherself.com. Also, you can put that into YouTube to see his incredible videos, Channel Higher Self, onto the YouTube station. And if you would like a session with him, go to Channeling Higher Self. Lincoln, I know that there's many different pathways to get to where we're going. And my dad had all of us kids study different religions or different pathways when we were children because he thought that was very important. And he used to jokingly say to us that if the one you choose, because we were all free to choose our own, if the one you choose doesn't happen to be the right one per se, when you get to the other side and you don't have a physical body, you'll be familiar with all of them, so you'll be able to switch really fast. And it was just my dad's sense of humor. And so once my dad passed and we were talking one day, he said to me, you know, it is more like Buddhism here than what you have chosen to follow. So please learn more about Buddhism. So I want to ask, what have you found about the other side?
In my experience, the other side is completely peaceful and accepting. It feels very joyous and very free. I would think the best quality I could use to describe it would be a freedom. For myself, on the other side, I've met so many different beings, and we're all very full expressions of ourselves. I think being in this human reality, we're tied into a collective consciousness that allows us to create a world together. But once we step out of our bodies, now this physical reality, we start to feel what it's like to be more of myself. That's a very happy experience. In the non-physical reality, we're really so free to create anything we wish, and the way that the forms manifest is so much more immediate than in the world. I don't think that's a bad thing. I rather think that the world's unique because of the periods of time it takes for things to manifest. So on the other side, if you have an intention, it's kind of like in a dream state, the universe around you, the forms around you immediately begin to take shape of your intention. And the stronger your intention, the stronger your desire, the more quickly and the more fully the forms manifest for you. So for myself, I've always met very loving beings. I've never met any malicious beings on the other side. They're always very much at peace. There's no impatience. There's no anxiety. They know they have eternity. They're very loving. They know everything is one creative consciousness expressing itself in an infinite number of ways. So it's a very embracing experience. I think many of the qualities that we admire and aspire to have ourselves in this human world are the same qualities we naturally have in our spiritual state. Now, something you said, Sharon, was interesting, that your father told you that Buddhism is the most similar to the other side. And in Buddhism, at least in certain schools, they emphasize the natural state. And they teach that as you quiet your mind just through meditative practices, you start to discover a natural state of happiness and peace. And that's what I think your father's referring to, at least one of the aspects, that when we come out of our body and all the psychological conditioning based upon separation consciousness and survival consciousness, we realize that our natural state of our soul is peaceful and happy all the time. And Buddhism can help us touch into that because it doesn't fill our mind with more things to do that often are motivated from our separation consciousness and our survival consciousness. So yeah, there's certain aspects of Buddhism I really enjoyed. They helped me to connect more fully to the other side and to become the channel that I currently am.
So let's talk about East and West religions. I was taught, again, I had, my dad, through his sense of humor, would always give us profound things to think about. But he always described religions as different sides of a multi-sided pyramid that were all leading to exactly the same point. And you could crawl all up on one side and stay there, or you could go around in circles on the different sides and get there. But you had freedom of choice and able to get there. And East and West, I think since Yogananda Paramahansa has really helped bring the two together. But what do you find are the varying things that East does versus West, or what they have as similarities that are very useful?
Mm-hmm. Well, first off, I was brought up in Christianity. And then when I went to university, I decided to pursue, well, at first I was studying 4 different majors, philosophy, anthropology, psychology, and religion. And then I chose to finish my schooling with 2 majors, with psychology and with religion. So I was exposed, like you, Sharon, to most of the world's religions. And that really helped me to understand, like your father taught you, that all these religions are trying to answer the same fundamental questions. Who are we? Why are we here? And what's the purpose of life? So I think a person can really go through any of the religions and find pieces. Maybe the religion doesn't have all the pieces that give you the complete picture of your reality, but I think that all the religions do have effective pieces that help us live a happier life. What I'm noticing in my time is that all the parts of the world are being brought together into a single global consciousness or a global information structure. So with technology, and not just the internet, but also with transportation, and we're able to really bring everything together for one person to experience. So I'm seeing a beautiful blending of the Eastern traditions and the Western traditions. When I study the Eastern traditions, predominantly they focus on going within and learning to cultivate these experiences of peace and happiness and oneness inside yourself. And often the practices involve physical stillness and closing your eyes and drawing back of your sensory energy so you can go deeper into your own mind and emotions. And then on the West, it's the flip side. It's the opposite. On the West, the focus is more on manifesting. Right? We want to create abundance in our lives. We want to create the best job, the best relationships. We want to have these beautiful physical experiences as a result of our creative expression. Right now, I think what's happening in the world is the inner and the outer are finally coming together, and we're realizing you can't just choose one. In order to have a complete human life, you have to master your mind and your emotions, and you also have to master your physical expression. So we're learning how to work with our mind, and also realizing that everything in our mind is being reflected to us in the quality of our human life. We're learning to master our emotions and realizing that our relationships are showing us our emotional qualities. So we're realizing, I think, that the inner and the outer were never 2 separate things. In the East, you kind of treated them as separate. You went within and you ignored the outside world. And I think that's why traditionally there was a lot of poverty in the Eastern countries, but a lot of inner wisdom. And in the West, we had the opposite. We cut off the inside. We didn't have a lot of knowledge about who we were, but we developed sciences, and we created so abundantly in the external world. So right now we're realizing that both halves are important, that everything that all cultures and all religions of the world have to offer is important. I think this is also tying into this whole concept of races and segregation and prejudice. We're realizing that every human being is valuable regardless of what country they're born in or regardless of their race or gender. So there's so much unity happening right now in the world. Technology is showing us this, transportation showing us this, all the ways we can share and interact with each other is showing us this. And I think intuitively each and every one of us knows that we can no longer ignore or separate away from aspects of ourselves. We really got to bring them all together to cultivate the happiness we're looking to have here.
I love the way you answer questions, Lincoln. It's with such compassion and such love as they're coming across. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible to me. And I just so want to thank you for being on the show and remind everybody again that to connect with you, they can go to channelhigherself.com. And if you'd like a session, go to channelinghigherself.com. And it was just absolutely a joy to have you join me today, Lincoln. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Sharon. Yeah, I'm very happy to have this opportunity. Thank you for inviting me on your show and to present this to your audience. I hope that everything that I shared inspires new ideas and helps people to find more motivation and more strength and more self-trust within themselves. You know, to comment on what you said here at the end, part of the reason why my mind thinks this way and why I talk this way is because I've cultivated living in my heart for over 20 years. So that's been my path. In the beginning, it was Zen meditation, be the awareness, but as the higher self awoke within me, it taught me that being in the heart and living from the heart is really the most important part. So as we live from our heart, we are going to notice all of these positive changes in our mind, in our relationships, in our careers, and all the parts of our lives. Our soul's creative energy shines from our heart, and the way we discover who we are is by being the expression of ourselves in our lives. I think the idea that we had to go somewhere else, go within, go to another dimension, or that we had to become something in the outer world, I think those illusions are falling away. And we're realizing the true wisdom is to get in touch with who I am in my heart and bring that into my life as the expression of who I am. At least that's what I'm learning. That's been my journey so far.
And it's a beautiful one. Next week, we have a special that we only do 3 times during the year, and that is a total call-in show. I do not have a guest on the 5th Thursday of any month, and you can call in and ask me anything. You can ask me to look at your name. You can ask me a spiritual question. It's totally up to you. But next week is a total call-in show. And that concludes our show for this week. This is Sharon Lynn Wyeth signing off.
Gazing in the mirror, an image of an angel smiling back at her. No wounds or imperfections, just beauty and its glow. Her laughter and her heart, a reflection of her soul. And I want to shine like the sun and smile to stop the rain. And I want to dance with the wind and believe in dreams again. When the paintbrush of life stroke the canvas of her, the light slightly dimmed, her reflection unseen, and all that she knew, and all that would be, it vanished like the sun rays.